Jodie, I'll hand over to you now to share this next part with us, please.
Thanks, Julia. Well, I guess for everybody here today at this Ask X Factor Live, part of the quandary that we all have about succession planning is exactly what does it mean? So, I've been on boards and I've been working with clients, and I'm sure people here today can relate to this, where people say, oh, we must do something about succession planning. And this is typically what happens. So, somebody says that in the board meeting and everyone goes, yeah, we should do something about that. And then nothing happens. Or it's a standing agenda item where there's no activity. And then people start to throw around things like, oh yeah, my term's coming up for an end in 2 years. And there's all these sort of random conversations that happen in the boardroom because succession planning is part of the governance responsibility of the board. Renewing, replacing, making sure that the skills are relevant, that the diversity on the board reflects the diversity of community and the communities that you're working with. But also cognitive diversity and gender and disability and, rural and regional. I mean, diversity is so broad. It's not just about gender. And so I think the first thing is that people often talk around this topic, and they talk around it a lot. And I'm working with a drug and alcohol service at the moment that's been trying for, the last 12 months to get subcommittee members on their marketing subcommittee, and even convincing the board that they needed to do that was a battle. So, I'm working with them. I've got a really easy methodology that we can implement. The exciting news is, and I'm sure that people on today's X Factor Live will be pleased to hear this, there are thousands and thousands of people out there who want to contribute to your organisation on the board or on a subcommittee. So, when people say to me, oh, we just can't find anyone, they're just not looking in the right places and in the right way. Mm-hmm. So the other thing about succession planning that often becomes a very awkward and difficult issue is that when people are sort of outstaying their welcome. So by that I mean, even people who've been on the board, say, for 4 years, and they can renew their term, under the Constitution, the question really has to be, well, in what way are they contributing to the mission and the goals of the organisation? And sometimes people aren't. This is an awkward question, or awkward situation, because they may be occupying a seat. They're not really bringing to the table the skills, the attributes, the networks, the resources that the organisation needs. So part of the goal of succession planning is making sure you've got the right people at the right time with the right skills. And so, the other thing before we move to the slides that I've got prepared is people often feel very confused about raising this as an issue. And so I liken it that if we were at a party and we're having a good dance and we're enjoying company of other people, and then suddenly the host comes over and says, oh, I just want to let you know, Jodie, I've got an Uber waiting for you outside. Suddenly you're thinking, well, what do you mean I have to go? So, succession planning has to provide a space for awkward conversations, but doing it in a respectful and compassionate way. So let's talk about some of the reasons why people don't do succession planning and the things that get in the way. If we have a look at the slides there, what we're going to talk about is governance and the FUD factor. And, when I say FUD factor, this is for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's not here on my FUD, it's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So if we go to the next slide, please. And these are really at the heart of the reasons why people don't move off a board. Even someone who's very accomplished, very confident, and contributing really well will have in their mind and in their heart somewhere that they fear the uncertainty of what's next for them. They might get a lot of social enjoyment from the board. They might get a sense of achievement. They might even get status and kudos. So if we don't address these underlying issues, that's going to really get in the way of being able to do succession planning well. And then the uncertainty. What about if I don't like these new people who come on the board? What if I can't communicate with them? What if there's some awkwardness there? What if we don't get along? And then the doubt is really about self-doubt, but it's also about, well, we're not going to find the people anyway. So we have to address these things in a very positive way in order to move forward and find fantastic board directors who can contribute their skills and talents and resources to the organisation's mission. And in the next slide. Oh, maybe not.
Sorry.
Yes, here we go.
That's me doing really bad slide turning.
Yeah. So the denial part, distress, danger, desperation. Look, sometimes, there are really, really challenging issues that the board are facing. And it might be about poor performance of a board director. It might be some ethical conduct that's unethical conduct. There might be some real challenges that the organisation is facing about some, internal issues or loss of reputation or funding or all sorts of issues. So these are difficult for people to really acknowledge, and particularly if you're bringing new people onto the board, you have to consider how you can communicate these in a way that can harness their skills and experience but not scare them off. And I'm a big fan of the no surprises approach. So you have to be honest and have integrity and acknowledge what's happening, but also help people understand the situation that you're in at the moment. And the thing about succession planning is that people always think it's about the planning part. I'm here to tell you it's actually about the action part. You can have all the plans in the world, but unless you do something about it, you're not going to progress and move forward. And next slide, please. Yeah, so if you leave it too long, you really become quite despairing. And the way that shows up is, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation today, Julia, it's really about people feeling overwhelmed, taming the chaos, people feeling burnt out because there's not a renewal. And that some of the best ways that we can help and support our fellow board directors is looking for those signs where people are burnt out, and perhaps they're worried they can't get off the board because they can't see somebody coming up in the pipeline. So they don't want to let people down. So we have to actually do them an honour and a service to make sure that we can allow them to move on to the new opportunities out there, or choose to spend more time with friends and family or their business or whatever they want to do. Okay, and so on the next slide, so this is really just a nice visual to say that, you have to take a leap of faith here and go from, the fear, uncertainty and doubt over to the other side. And the other side is where, we're serving our customers and our clients much better. We're working on action, and the organisation is growing and thriving. And, sometimes that can make a difference of new directors coming in who can bring that sort of freshness as well and work in harmony and conjunction with the existing directors. It's not about saying the new ones are really awesome and the ones who are left behind are not. It's about working together as a team. And on the next slide. And so this is a good little model that I've developed to help people, you have to have an awareness to start with about the need to have board renewal. You have to have a culture that says, you know what, we're not going to be here forever, and we have to have really good conversations and support people to make good decisions. But we also have to have compassion with ourselves and also the places where other people are at. And of course, action taking is essential. And all of those four approaches, what I call the ACCA model, we have to think about what are the needs of our customers or our consumers or clients in the middle, and how are we best serving them. We don't have governance just to have board meetings. We have it to make good decisions that have positive impacts on the people we're there to serve. And just lastly, I've got a bit of a diagram that I've developed. It's got a fancy name, board length of term table. If anyone here on the call can think of a better way to describe it, please hit me up. And what I developed this for is because a lot of board directors get confused about when their term expires. And often the way that shows up is that people spend a lot of time trying to think about it, and then they get caught unawares, and suddenly, 2 or 3 directors are not eligible to re-nominate, even if they were able to, because they've got great skills, but because of the Constitution, they're not allowed. So this visual gives you a great insight and say, okay, there's not going to be any surprises here because we know what's planned. What we don't know is the unplanned. And the unplanned things, the unforeseen things could be, touch wood, something happens and someone is unwell or passes away, or, their job changes and they can't get involved in anymore in the board, or sometimes, you know, they're involved in things which are in conflict with the organisation's best interests and they can't continue on the board. So this is a really great way to sort of get it clear in your head so that you don't have these argy-bargy conversations. Thanks, Julia.